Welcome. Tonight we're settling into one of the longest, most passionate love stories America ever put on a page. You don't have to stay awake. You don't have to remember everything. Just let the story come to you, warm and slow. Maybe today felt like something was missing. Like the life you're living is smaller than the one you imagined. Tonight's story knows that feeling better than almost anything else ever written. And it has an answer. Of sorts. Gone with the Wind. A story about survival, desire, loss, and one woman who refuses to stay down no matter what. Her name is Scarlett O'Hara. She's 16, and she is the most determined person in any room she walks into. She wants things. Badly. And the story of what that wanting costs her. That's what we're here for tonight. Tara. That's the name of the plantation where Scarlett grows up. Red earth, white columns, cotton as far as you can see. Her father Gerald tells her the land is the only thing worth fighting for. Worth dying for. She remembers that. The year is 1861. Here's where it gets interesting. The antebellum South is a world about to end, and nobody knows it. The Tarleton twins ride up with news that stops Scarlett cold. Ashley Wilkes is going to marry his cousin Melanie. She loves Ashley. Has loved him in that total, consuming way that 16 allows. And now this. Her mother Ellen runs Tara with quiet authority. She is everything Scarlett wants to be and never quite becomes. The 12 Oaks barbecue. Scarlett dresses to devastate. She will find Ashley alone and tell him how she feels. And this is the part most people miss. Ashley doesn't reject her harshly. He does something worse. He's gentle about it. Then Charles Hamilton walks in. He's seen everything. He's instantly, helplessly in love with Scarlett instead. News arrives from Fort Sumter. The war has started. The men of 12 Oaks cheer. The world ends with their laughter. Before the war swallows all of this, before everything changes. Let me just pause here with you for a moment. If this feels like a good way to end your night, we tell stories like this every week. A subscribe means we'll always find you. Thank you. Now back to Georgia. Back to 12 Oaks, where a man in a black coat has been watching Scarlett all afternoon. Rhett Butler. 35 from Charleston, already half infamous. He doesn't cheer for the war. Scarlett notices. Scarlett, furious and humiliated by Ashley's refusal, does something impulsive. She accepts Charles Hamilton's proposal. Charles Hamilton dies of pneumonia in an army camp. No battle, no glory. Just fever and the war's first ugly truth. Scarlett is a teenage widow in Atlanta, wearing black she hates, miserable and restless at Melanie's family home. Stay with this. It matters later. A charity bazaar. Widows cannot dance. Rhett Butler bids $150 for her. They dance. And for the first time in her life, Scarlett meets someone she cannot charm, manipulate, or read clearly. Rhett tells her the South will lose. That the North has factories and the South is gallantry, and that's no contest. Melanie Hamilton Wilkes, Ashley's wife. Small, plain, always kind. She is the most genuinely good person in the story. The wounded fill Atlanta. The hospitals overflow. Scarlett and Melanie begin nursing, surrounded by suffering they weren't prepared for. Atlanta is running out of time. The war is coming to the city. And Scarlett's old world is almost gone. Scarlett hates the hospital. The smell, the flies, the sounds. But she stays. That's the first real thing we learn about her. Melanie moves through the ward like she was born for it. Reading to soldiers, holding hands, never flinching. Genuine goodness, quietly displayed. A letter comes from Ashley at the front. He writes about Melanie with a love so open it nearly breaks Scarlett to read it. Rhett appears at the hospital with contraband luxuries. French perfume, brandy, real coffee. He looks at Scarlett like she's the most entertaining thing he's ever seen. She doesn't like that she's drawn to him. He sees through every trick she has. That's infuriating. And somehow, compelling. Through the summer of 1864, Atlanta shakes. Artillery sounds every night. Smoke thickens on the horizon. The city is holding its breath. Then Melanie goes into labor. In the middle of the siege. The worst possible moment. and the doctor cannot come through the bombardment. Scarlett has to deliver the baby herself, with only Prissy for help. She has never done this. Nobody has prepared her for any of this. Prissy had promised she knew everything about delivering babies. She confesses now, in tears, that she knows absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. The baby arrives. Melanie lives barely. Outside, Atlanta is falling. Scarlett looks at what she's done and doesn't let herself feel it yet. Scarlett finds Rhett in the chaos. She begs. He agrees. He'll get them out of Atlanta on a single horse and a broken wagon. The train depot. Thousands of wounded men covering every inch of platform. The full horror of what the Confederacy has lost. Lying in the Georgia heat, Rhett drives them through burning Atlanta. Fire on both sides. The horse panicking. Scarlett holding Melanie's baby and not closing her eyes. On the dark road south, Rhett stops. He's going back. He's joining the Confederate Army, even now, even knowing it's lost. He disappears into the dark. She's alone on a dirt road in the middle of a war with a newborn baby and a sick woman. And she drives on, through the night, across bridges, past dead horses. She doesn't know the road well. She drives by instinct, toward Tara, always toward Tara. Tara is standing. Damaged, yes. Stripped, yes. But standing. She collapses against the column and breathes for the first time in days. Then the news. Ellen O'Hara is dead. Typhoid took her days ago. And Gerald, her father, his mind has simply broken with the grief. Scarlett walks out to the red fields of Tara. She is starving. She finds a radish in the dirt and eats it. And she makes her vow. As God is my witness, she says. She will never be hungry again. And she means it in a way that will cost her everything soft in herself. A Yankee deserter comes to Tara looking to steal. Scarlett finds her father's pistol. She shoots him. Her first killing. She doesn't flinch after. Something locks into place inside her after that. She will do whatever it takes. Whatever. No hesitation. No apology. Winter at Tara. Cold and hungry and relentless. Scarlett trades the last of their silver for seed corn. Spring will come. It has to. Ashley comes home from a prisoner of war camp. Thin, gray-faced, eyes emptied of the dreamy certainty she remembered. The war has hollowed him out. Ashley tries to help manage Tara. He can't. He was built for the old world, and that world is gone. Scarlett sees it. She doesn't want to. The county tax man arrives. $300. Tara will be seized in 60 days if Scarlett can't find the money. She has nothing. She thinks of Rhett. He has money. She'll go to Atlanta and get it from him. She makes a dress from green velvet curtains and walks out the door. Rhett is in Yankee custody. She visits him in the jail. He sees through the dress immediately. Her hands give her away. Red clay under the nails, field work. He has no access to his money. It's frozen. He can't help even if he wanted to. She walks out with her head up, humiliated, unbroken. Her sister Sue Ellen's fiancé. A modest, kind man with a profitable store. Scarlett discovers this, and a plan forms that sickens even her a little. She tells Frank that Sulan has married someone else. A lie. He proposes within the week. Scarlett accepts. Her second marriage. Pure calculation. She pays the taxes. She saves Tara. And she stands on that red Georgia earth feeling something very close to joy. On her own terms. Frank has a store. Scarlett begins running it, then expanding it. Frank is uncomfortable. Frank's comfort has never been Scarlett's priority. The lumber mill. She acquires it, hires convict labor, appalling by Atlanta standards, and starts making real money for the first time. Atlanta society is horrified. She drives alone. She employs convicts. She doesn't observe the rules. But she's richer than almost all of them now. Rhett Butler is released. He reappears in Atlanta, wealthy as ever, and begins calling on Scarlett with his old sardonic persistence. Their verbal sparring is the liveliest thing in Scarlett's life. He says what no one else will. She responds in kind. Nobody else can keep up. Frank Kennedy is killed. A Klan raid on the man who attacked Scarlett on her driving route. She didn't ask them to. She feels something complicated. Rhett comes to her while she's still crying. From exhaustion, probably not grief. He looks at her weeping and asks her to marry him. She accepts. She wants the money and the security. He knows this perfectly well. He accepts those terms. That's the beginning of everything, and the end of it. The wedding in Charleston. His family receives Scarlett with the cold courtesy of people who have decided not to like someone and are being polite about it. The honeymoon in New Orleans. And here, quietly, Scarlett discovers that Rhett is unexpectedly tender, generous, a different person in private. Back in Atlanta, Rhett builds them the finest house in the city. Scarlett fills it with too much of everything. Neither of them knows how to be happy yet. Then Bonnie Blue Butler arrives. And Rhett, this man who has seen through everything, falls completely, helplessly in love with his daughter. But the marriage carries its fatal flaw from the beginning. Rhett sees Scarlett's heart clearly. She still looks past him, toward Ashley, toward something she can't name. Ashley is managing the lumber mill now. Scarlett stops by one afternoon. They share a moment, an embrace. India Wilkes sees it through the window. Atlanta gossip moves fast. By evening the story has spread. Scarlett and Ashley. The whole city is whispering. Except Melanie. She won't hear it. India organizes a party and makes clear Scarlett is not welcome. Melanie hears of it. She sends a note if Scarlett is excluded, she will not attend either. Rhett knows about the embrace. He says nothing in public. But alone with Scarlett, the warmth in him has gone cold. Something has broken. Rhett forces Scarlett to attend Ashley's birthday party. She must go and she must smile. He will not let her retreat. That would look like guilt. At Ashley's party, Melanie greets Scarlett with her usual warmth and places her at Ashley's side. By morning, the gossip is reversed. Melanie has won. Later that night, Rhett is drunk. He tells Scarlett that he loves her, or did love her, in a way he finds humiliating to admit. His face is not kind. He carries her up the staircase, the famous staircase. What happens between them that night is one of the novel's most debated passages. Complicated and unrepeated. Morning. Rhett is ashamed of himself. He leaves quietly. The marriage has crossed something it can't uncross. The distance between them becomes permanent. Rhett announces he's taking Bonnie to London for the season. To restore what reputation she might have lost by association with her mother's scandal. Scarlett discovers she is pregnant again. She tells Rhett. His response, that they haven't been together, is a wound that should have been the end. They argue on the landing. She steps back. She falls down the staircase. The pregnancy is lost. The same staircase that meant one thing now means another. Rhett's guilt is enormous. He doesn't show it to Scarlett. Pride won't allow it. He carries it quietly, and it makes him harder to reach. Bonnie comes home from London. The house brightens. Whatever else is broken between Rhett and Scarlett, they both love this child without reservation. Bonnie is afraid of the dark. She screams when the candle goes out. Rhett gives in to everything. Blue curtains, candlelight all night, whatever she needs. Scarlett's business keeps growing. The lumber mill expands. She and Rhett coexist, polite, separate, occasionally sharp with each other, strangers in a fine house. Ashley is failing at the mill. He simply isn't built for commerce. He apologizes to Scarlett often. The apologies make something in her go very quiet. Melanie's health is not improving. It never fully recovered after Bonnie's birth, or rather, after her own son's birth in Atlanta. Everyone sees it. Nobody says it aloud. Rhett spends more evenings away Bell Watlings, or simply driving alone through Atlanta. The marriage has become a house they both live in separately. Scarlett confronts something she has been avoiding. When she thinks of Ashley now, the feeling is less urgent. More like habit than hunger. Bonnie in the stable yard. Her small brown pony, her blue riding habit. This is where she and Rhett are happiest. He lives for these afternoon hours with her. Rhett begins teaching Bonnie to jump. She's fearless. She takes to it immediately. He laughs more in those afternoon lessons than in the whole rest of his life. One afternoon, Bonnie decides the bar is too low. She wants it raised higher. Rhett raises it. She sets the pony at it again. Something goes wrong. Bonnie falls. Her neck breaks on landing. She dies within moments in the Georgia afternoon. Rhett is at her side before anyone else moves. Rhett locks himself in the room with Bonnie's body. He won't let them take her. He won't let them bury her. He sits with her through the night and into the next day. Melanie goes to the locked door. She speaks quietly through the wood. He opens it for her, only her. Whatever she says, it reaches him where nothing else could. Bonnie's funeral. Rhett stands apart from everyone, unreachable inside his grief. Scarlett watches him from the other side of a distance she doesn't know how to cross. After Bonnie, Rhett and Scarlett are two people in black, living in a house built for happiness they never quite inhabited. The gap is now permanent. Something shifts in Scarlett's feeling for Ashley. She looks at him one afternoon and sees, plainly, finally, that he is weak, gentle and kind, and entirely unable to manage his own life. Then the message comes from Melanie's house. She has collapsed. Another pregnancy. Her doctor's face says what his words won't. This is the end. Scarlett runs through Atlanta streets to Melanie's side, not walking, running. And she's not entirely sure why, until she gets there and understands. Melanie is dying. She knows it. She speaks to Scarlett from her pillow with the calm of someone who has made peace with every room in their life. Melanie entrusts Ashley to Scarlett's care. She has always known, she says. She chose to believe the best. She asks Scarlett to look after him, to look after Rhett. Melanie dies, and in the moment of her death, something breaks open in Scarlett. Something she didn't know was there. Grief, real and unperformed. In the hallway, Ashley. He's destroyed. Completely undone. For the first time, Scarlett sees him as he is. A man who loved his wife, and has nothing without her. It arrives, the revelation. She never loved Ashley. She loved what he represented. Something safe, admired, from a world where she knew who she was. And then, Rhett. She understands what she has had, what she has wasted, what she has been turning away from for years while he was right there. She runs, back through Atlanta, to their house. She has to tell him before it's too late. She is running as fast as she ever has toward anything. She finds him in the parlor. His back is to her. There is a traveling case near the door. She understands before he turns around. She tells him she loves him. She has only just seen it clearly, and she is telling him now. Her voice is not performing. It's the most honest she has ever been. He says he is sorry, genuinely, but he doesn't give a damn anymore. Not because he never loved her, because he loved her too long and nothing is left. The timing, that's what breaks it. He stopped loving her while she was still finding her way to him. The gap between those two moments, that's the tragedy. Rhett picks up the traveling case. He walks to the door. He opens it onto the dark Atlanta morning. He steps through. He does not look back. Scarlett on the staircase. The door closed now. The house silent. The weight of everything landing at once. And for once she doesn't push it away. Then, slowly something familiar rises. Not resolution, not a plan, just a warmth. The image of Tara, the red earth, home. She will go home. She will think about it at Tara. How to get him back. What to do. Where to begin. Tomorrow. She'll figure it out tomorrow. Tomorrow is another day. She says it to herself, and she means it with everything she has. It is not shallow. It is the deepest thing she knows how to believe. Tara in her mind, silhouetted against the Georgia sky. White columns, red earth, the one thing that has never failed to hold her. The story's truth is here. Survival is her nature, not her nature. And nature, Mitchell says, is neither condemned nor celebrated. It simply is. The book closes, but Scarlett's life continues. Mitchell leaves her to the morning, and to whatever tomorrow she is already planning. Now that we've lived through the story, let's step back and look at what Mitchell actually built here. It's more deliberate than it first appears. Scarlett O'Hara is not a heroine in the traditional sense. She's not a villain either. She's something rarer, an honest portrait of wanting. Her name's Scarlett, always too vivid, too present, too much. Mitchell chose it deliberately. This woman cannot be overlooked and cannot quite be forgiven. O'Hara, the Irish name tells you everything. Gerald came from nothing. Immigrant hunger transposed to Georgia soil. Scarlett inherits it without knowing. The land itself is a character. Mitchell's Georgia has weight, smell, color. The red clay is not background. It's the novel's heartbeat, the thing everything else orbits. Mitchell's relationship to the antebellum South is complicated and has rightly been criticized. She loved what she described. She also knew it was built on something monstrous. Tara functions as Scarlett's emotional anchor across the whole novel. When everything else fails her, the land holds. It's the one relationship she never has to earn. Ashley Wilkes is not just a man Scarlett loves wrongly. He is the Old South itself, refined, beautiful, doomed, utterly unable to survive contact with the New World. What Ashley truly represents: the past that Scarlett can't release, because releasing it would mean admitting the world she grew up in is really gone. Rhett Butler, by contrast, is the future. He knows the old world is ending before anyone else. He's already adapted. That's why the Old South despises him. Rhett's tragedy is specific. He loves the last woman who would value what he offers. Honesty, clear seeing. Love without illusion. And she is constitutionally unable to receive it. The marriage's fatal flaw: both too proud, both too defended, both waiting for the other to lay down their armor first. Neither does. The distance wins. The staircase appears 3 times in the novel. It means something different each time. Mitchell uses architecture the way poets use images, layered and deliberate. Melanie is the novel's moral compass, its true north. She is not naive. She knows more than she shows. She chooses goodness deliberately, every day. Why do readers love Scarlett despite everything she does? Because she is honest about wanting. She doesn't pretend she doesn't want things. That's rarer than it sounds. Mammy, the novel's most complex and also most contested figure. Her love for the O'Haras is real. The system that produced her role is not examined. Both are true. Mitchell uses the Civil War as personal apocalypse, not a political story. A story about what it feels like when the entire world, simply stops existing. Sherman's march through the novel is destruction as transformation. What it destroys is real and irreplaceable. What it reveals beneath, also real. The hunger scenes in the novel have a rawness that still lands. Mitchell doesn't soften them. Scarlett eating a raw radish from the dirt is one of American literature's most visceral images. I'll never be hungry again. That vow isn't about food. It's about never being helpless again. Never being at the mercy of anyone or anything. It shapes everything she does after. Scarlett's 3 marriages are 3 different survival strategies. Each one reveals something about where she is and what she needs in that moment. Charles Hamilton. She walked over him without seeing him. He loved her genuinely and died before she could even feel guilty about it. The novel's first casualty of Scarlett's wanting. Frank Kennedy, a genuinely kind man used as a tool. He deserved better. The novel knows this. Mitchell doesn't let Scarlett quite off the hook for it. Rhett Butler, the only equal she ever had. The one person who could have loved her fully. The one she was too defended to see until it was too late. The novel's view of love is complicated. Is what Scarlett feels love, or possession? Is Rhett's devotion love, or obsession? Mitchell leaves those questions open on purpose. Atlanta as America, the city that burned completely and rebuilt faster than anyone thought possible. More ambitious than before, more itself than before. The Reconstruction era as Mitchell presents it. A defeated people learning a new game with rules written by the victors, on a board that used to be theirs. Old Atlanta and New Atlanta. Who survives the war's aftermath? The ruthless and the adaptable. The noble and the rigid do not fare as well. The clan subplot sits in the novel uncomfortably and has been criticized with reason. Mitchell presents it as protection. Historians and readers rightly push back on that framing. What Mitchell shows us about the aftermath of war on ordinary households, the hunger, the reorganization of labor, the reversal of fortune, is vivid and researched and real. The women hold everything together in this novel. Ellen, Mammy, Scarlett, Melanie, each one managing something enormous, while the men around them struggle or break. What the men cannot do in this novel: manage grief, adapt to change, function without the world they were built for. Ashley's failure is emblematic of a whole class. Belle Watling, the prostitute who acts with more honor than most of respectable Atlanta. She donates to the hospital. She protects the men who raid on Scarlett's behalf. Bonnie Blue Butler, the child who concentrates all of Rhett's love. She is what he could be if the world had let him be simple. Her death costs him everything. The color blue runs through Bonnie's story like a thread. Her name, her ribbons, her curtains, her riding habit. Blue is Rhett's hope made a color. When it ends, so does he. Mitchell's prose style is vivid and unironic and cinematic before cinema had the vocabulary she was inventing. She writes scenes you can see as frames. The novel covers 20 years and thousands of lives in just over 1,000 pages. The compression of it, the density, is one of Mitchell's real achievements. Mitchell builds dread slowly. The war approaches for chapters before it arrives. Bonnie's jump is telegraphed pages before it happens. The tightening is deliberate and effective. When do we realize Scarlett and Rhett won't make it? Probably before they do. The reader sees the gap widening long before the characters admit it. The structural parallel is precise. Scarlett loves Ashley the way Rhett loves Scarlett, pursuing someone constitutionally unable to love them back in the way they need. Both pursuing someone who cannot love them back in the way they need. Mitchell sets this up deliberately. The irony is the novel's architecture. What if they had been honest earlier? What if Scarlett had seen Rhett at the bazaar and understood? Mitchell doesn't allow this. Some people need the long way around. What Rhett would have needed: to be seen, not managed. To be loved for what he actually was, not handled for what he could provide. Scarlett never learned that language. What Scarlett would have needed: someone who stayed anyway, who saw all of it, the ruthlessness, the calculation, and said yes, and I'm still here. Rhett almost was that person. The emotional logic of frankly, my dear. It isn't cruelty, it's exhaustion. A man who has spent everything and found the account empty. The famous line lands as a resignation. What Rhett feels as he says it, Mitchell is deliberately ambiguous. Does a piece of him hope she'll fight? She doesn't. They are both their own worst obstacles. Scarlett's response to his departure is not despair, it's planning. She will figure this out. She will find a way, the constitutionally unsuited to giving up response. Tomorrow is another day is not a shallow line. It's the only theology she has, the belief that continuation is possible. For someone who has survived what she has, that's everything. The red earth as spiritual homed, Georgia as sacred ground. Mitchell understood this before she could have explained it. The land is the one thing that gives meaning without requiring anything back. Mitchell's own relationship to the South. Georgian to the bone. The grandchild of people who lived through exactly what she wrote. The personal debt to the story is real. What she saw in Atlanta in the 1920s, a city still processing a war 60 years old, grandparents whose voices held the original fire, ruins she rode past as a child. 10 years of writing. She told almost no one. The manuscript existed in sections, out of order, stuffed in envelopes around the apartment, a secret, enormous project. The manuscript nearly didn't survive. Mitchell considered destroying it multiple times. We almost didn't get this story. That fact makes the whole novel feel more fragile and more precious. Publication day, May 3, 1936. The first printing sold out in hours. By the end of the year, 1 million copies. America was hungry for exactly this story at exactly this moment. the Pulitzer Prize in 1937. A Southern Woman, a first novel, a story about survival and lost causes. America recognized something essential in it, whatever its complications. Within 3 years of publication, Hollywood came calling. The film rights sold fast. What followed was one of the most chaotic productions in cinema history. The casting search for Scarlett became a national event. Studios tested over 1,400 women. The whole country had an opinion about who should play her. Vivien Leigh was chosen, a British actress, to play the most famous Southern American woman. The controversy was immediate. The performance silenced it. Clark Gable as Rhett Butler. The public had already decided this before filming began. The studio's choice matched the country's imagination perfectly. David O. Selznick produced it with an obsession that became legendary. He fired directors, rewrote scripts daily, spent twice the budget. He wanted it perfect and wouldn't stop. The burning of Atlanta was filmed first. They burned old studio sets and called them Atlanta. The fire was visible for miles. Vivien Leigh arrived to see it burning. The Atlanta premiere in December 1939 was a 3-day civic celebration. A city of 300,000 turned out. The city remembered its own burning. The film broke box office records that stood for decades. Adjusted for inflation, it remains one of the highest grossing films ever made. The numbers still impress. The performance that anchors the film is extraordinary. Leigh's Scarlett is one of cinema's defining characterizations. She makes you believe in someone you probably shouldn't admire. The line, "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn." Selznick fought the censors for months to keep a single word. He paid a fine. He kept the word. He was right to. The film's complicated legacy begins with what it chooses to show. The antebellum South is rendered as beautiful. The enslaved people who built it are rendered as devoted servants. The NAACP responded to the film on release. The plantation myth, the lost cause narrative, was dangerous, they argued. The images would outlast the critiques. They were right. In 2020, HBO Max briefly removed the film from its platform, then reinstated it with a contextualizing introduction. The debate about how to hold the film reignited globally. How do we hold a flawed masterpiece? That question is not unique to this book, but this book forces it with particular sharpness. The beauty and the damage are inseparable. Alice Randall published The Wind Don't Gone in 2001. The same story told from Sinara's perspective. The enslaved woman's view of Tara and the people who owned it. The Mitchell estate sued to block Randall's book. A federal court ruled for Randall. Parody and commentary are protected. The counter-narrative was allowed to exist. Donald McCaig's Rhett Butler's People was authorized by the Mitchell estate in 2007. Rhett's story, told from his perspective. Divisive among fans. Rhett remains elusive even there. Is the novel literature? Is it history? Is it myth? The honest answer is probably all three, unevenly distributed. And the combination is the reason it has lasted. Margaret Mitchell personally after publication. She was overwhelmed. She had not wanted fame. She wanted her private life, and the book had made that impossible. She never wrote another novel. Not a sequel, not a new story. One book. The rest of her life spent managing what that one book had made of her world. In August 1949, Mitchell was struck by a car crossing Peachtree Street in Atlanta. She died 5 days later. The city she wrote about took her at 61 years old. Atlanta's relationship to its most famous novel is complicated. Pride, discomfort, tourism, and ongoing debate all wound together in the same civic identity. What remains in Atlanta? The house on Peachtree Street where she wrote it, now a museum. The desk, the typewriter, the original manuscript pages. The physical evidence of the decade she spent. Translations. Gone with the Wind has appeared in more than 40 languages. Global hunger for this story turned out to be something no one had quite predicted. In Japan, the novel became one of the most read foreign works in the country's history. The Japanese response was enormous and sustained across multiple generations. Scholars have debated it. Defeat, rebuilding, the will to survive after catastrophic loss. The story speaks to something Japan recognized in itself after 1945. Scarlett as survivor archetype. Her appeal crosses cultures and eras because survival is a universal language. The specifics change. The determination doesn't. What the story gives readers who are struggling: permission to keep going. That's not a small thing. Sometimes that's the only thing a story needs to give. The question of sympathy. Are we supposed to like Scarlett? Mitchell never answered that directly. She wrote Scarlett as she was and trusted readers to manage their own feelings. Mitchell's deliberate ambiguity. She never said if Scarlett was admirable. She never said if Rhett came back. She left those questions to the reader and walked away. The novel's feminism. It's complicated. Scarlett's independence is celebrated in the story's momentum and punished by the plot's outcomes. Mitchell has it both ways, and both ways ring true. Scarlett's commercial success is treated as both triumph and transgression throughout. The novel can't quite decide if it admires what she does to survive. Neither can the reader. The men in this novel are, almost without exception, less capable than the women who depend on them. Mitchell observed this without quite commenting on it. She didn't need to. What that says about Mitchell's actual view of gender. Probably more than she was willing to say directly. The novel speaks louder than any interview she ever gave. Melanie as the other model. She shows that strength doesn't require Scarlett's tactics. Goodness itself is a kind of force. The novel offers both versions without judging either. Why readers choose Scarlett anyway, even knowing Melanie is the better person. Because Scarlett gives permission to want things, to want them without apology. That's powerful. The novel's class politics, who rebuilds and who is left behind. The people Scarlett employs, the wages she pays, the convict labor. The economics of her survival have their own casualties. Reconstruction as seen through Scarlett's eyes carries the biases of her perspective. She resents Yankee authority and carpetbaggers. The novel shares her resentment without fully examining it. What the novel gets right about survival psychology. When stakes are high enough, the field of vision narrows. You see only what's immediately threatening. Everything else blurs. What the novel gets wrong. What it chooses not to see. The lives of the enslaved people at Tara and 12 Oaks are not examined. Their suffering is not the story. That absence costs the novel its completeness. The moral universe of the novel. Is there one? Mitchell believes in survival in the land, in love, imperfectly expressed. Beyond that, the morality is mostly Scarlett's, which is flexible. The land as the only stable value in the novel. Tara doesn't disappoint. It doesn't leave. It doesn't fail to love her back. The land is the one relationship that works. Tara stands at the end. Damaged, changed, but standing. Even as everything human in the story is broken or gone, the house on the red clay is still there. That's the novel's last statement. The Scarlett and Rhett question. Do we want them to reconcile? Probably. But Mitchell knew that giving us that would have made the ending smaller. What a sequel would have meant. Mitchell always refused to write one. The open ending isn't laziness. It's the point. Scarlett's tomorrow is the reader's imagination. The deliberate open ending. Scarlett's optimism as the last note. Not resolution. Not comfort. Just the insistence that tomorrow exists and that she will meet it. What Scarlett's optimism costs. It requires her not to see clearly in the present. She is always mortgaging now against tomorrow. The novel knows this is also a flaw. Or is optimism a form of clear seeing? Survival requires believing that tomorrow is worth the effort of today. Scarlett isn't wrong. She is just early. By the time she sees clearly, Rhett is gone. The novel is American mythology, the lost paradise and the will to rebuild. It speaks to something older than the Civil War. It speaks to the country's founding story about itself, how it speaks to anyone who has lost something enormous. Not just war, not just the South, any enormous loss. The structure of the novel fits that shape. The universality beneath the very specific Southern setting. Georgia in 1861 is not everyone's world. But wanting more than you have, losing what you love, and keeping going, that's everyone's world. What it means to love something that is wrong for you. Scarlett and Ashley, Scarlett and the Old World, the Old South and its self-image. The novel is everywhere about this. Letting go versus holding on, the novel's deepest tension. Rhett lets go. Scarlett holds on. Melanie holds on to her goodness. Ashley holds on to the past. Each choice has its cost. Rhett walks into the fog. Where is he going? Back to Charleston probably. Back to the family that will receive him coldly. Back to himself before Scarlett. Scarlett stands at Tara's gate. The red earth beneath her feet. The Georgia sky above. Tomorrow is another day. And she is already planning it. Let's spend some time with the woman who made all of this. Margaret Mitchell, born in Atlanta in 1900. A city child of the New South. Her family's Civil War stories were not history to them. They were memory. Her grandparents rode through those same fields, knew those same roads. She grew up inside the story she would write. Growing up in Atlanta meant growing up alongside the people who remembered. Veterans were still alive. Their wives still dressed in black for husbands 30 years dead. Her mother Maybelle was a suffragist. She drove young Peggy. That was Mitchell's nickname. Through the ruins of old plantations and told her, don't depend on anyone but yourself. Mitchell's own early life was vivid and willful. She was a debutante who danced with too many men and bobbed her hair, when bobbed hair was still scandalous, Atlanta talk. Her first marriage, in 1922, was a disaster. Barry Upshaw, called Red, was volatile and the marriage collapsed within months. She divorced him in 1924. Atlanta was not pleased. John Marsh, her second husband, married in 1925. Patient, devoted, an editor by profession. He became her first reader, her encourager. The person who believed the manuscript was real before she did. Mitchell worked as a journalist for the Atlanta Journal Sunday magazine. She was good at it. Vivid, fast, curious. Then she sprained her ankle badly and was ordered to rest. Bedridden and restless, with John bringing books from the library, she read everything available. Then one day he said, "You've read everything in the Carnegie. Why don't you write one?" She began writing to fill the days. She told almost no one. The manuscript grew in sections, stuffed into manila envelopes, stored under the bed and in the closets around the apartment. She wrote the chapters out of order. The final chapter, Rhett's departure, was written first. Then she wrote backward, filling in how they got there. The ending always knew itself. In 1935, Harold Latham, an editor from Macmillan, came to Atlanta scouting new manuscripts. Friends mentioned Mitchell. She almost didn't give him the pages. A friend told her she was foolish not to show it. Mitchell ran home, stuffed the envelopes into a suitcase, and delivered them to Latham's hotel. He read through the night. Latham telegrammed from the train, "We want to publish this." Mitchell's response was to send a letter, trying to get the manuscript back. She spent weeks doubting her own work. The editing process was long and difficult. Mitchell rewrote sections repeatedly. She kept changing her mind about characters, scenes, the title. Macmillan was patient barely. The title wasn't decided until very late. Earlier working titles were considered and rejected. Mitchell wanted something that felt like loss without sounding defeated. That's harder than it sounds. The final title came from Ernest Dowson's poem, "I Have Forgot Much Senera." Gone with the wind. The old world, the lost things, the days that cannot be recovered. Perfect. Publication day, May 3, 1936. The first printing was modest, Macmillan was cautious. By afternoon the print run was gone. By the end of the week they were reprinting frantically. The reviews were divided on literary merit. Some found it too long, too sentimental. But almost all agreed on its power. The reading public didn't wait for the critics. The Pulitzer Prize in 1937. The decision was controversial. Steinbeck's indubious battle was the critics' choice. The Pulitzer board overruled the advisors and chose Mitchell. Mitchell hated the fame. She had wanted the book to exist. She had not wanted to become the book. The celebrity arrived like weather. She had no umbrella. Her daily life after publication became answering letters, managing foreign rights, fighting unauthorized translations. She called it a full-time job she hadn't applied for and couldn't quit. The film rights sold for $50,000 in 1936, a substantial sum. Mitchell later said she regretted the sale. The film made her story larger than she could manage. Selznick's national search for Scarlett became its own entertainment industry. Talent scouts traveled every state. Screen tests in every major city. The search was marketing genius. Katharine Hepburn tested. Tallulah Bankhead lobbied hard. Paulette Goddard was the frontrunner for months. None of them became Scarlett. The role waited for someone nobody expected. Vivien Leigh was brought to the burning Atlanta set by Selznick's brother. She watched the fire. Selznick saw her face in the firelight and knew immediately she was Scarlett. Filming in 1939 was chaotic. 3 directors cycled through. Scripts rewrote themselves daily. Clark Gable threatened to walk. Selznick held everything together through sheer refusal to stop. The screenplay went through multiple writers, including an uncredited F. Scott Fitzgerald. The script that emerged was Sidney Howard's. He died before the film was finished. The final cut ran nearly 4 hours. Selznick refused to cut more. He was right. The film needed its length to carry the story's scope. The audience stayed for every minute. The Atlanta premiere on December 15, 1939, 3 days of parties, parades, and civic celebration. Georgia declared a state holiday. The governor attended. The city was briefly the center of the world. The celebration had a shadow. The black cast members, including Hattie McDaniel, were not invited to the Atlanta premiere. The segregated city welcomed a film about its past by reenacting it. Hattie McDaniel won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, the first black performer to win an Oscar. The moment was historic. Its context was complicated. At the ceremony itself, McDaniel sat at a segregated table at the back of the room. The contradiction of the moment. A historic win at a segregated event is the period in one image. The film swept the 1940 Academy Awards, 8 Oscars, a record at the time. It established itself as the defining American epic of its era. The industry had not seen anything quite like it. World War II and the novel. It was reprinted for American troops. Servicemen read it in the Pacific, in Europe, in hospitals. The survival story spoke to people facing survival themselves. The Soviet Union had a complicated relationship with the novel. Officially, it was capitalist decadence, but it circulated anyway. Samizdat copies passed from hand to hand. Forbidden things travel. The 1960s brought serious reassessment. The civil rights movement changed what it was possible to overlook. Critics returned to the novel with new questions. The answers were uncomfortable. Alex Haley's Roots, in 1976, offered the countered narrative at scale. The same era, the same enslaved experience, centered rather than backgrounded. The 2 books now sat in the same library. Discussions of a television adaptation circulated for decades. The Mitchell estate resisted vigorously. Their control over the property was total, and they exercised it without apology. The 1994 CBS miniseries, Scarlett, an authorized sequel based on Alexandra Ripley's novel, finally reached television. It didn't recapture what it was trying to follow. Some sequels can't exist. The Mitchell estate's management of the intellectual property has been fierce, litigious, and consistent. They have protected the novel as if it were a living person. Perhaps, in their understanding, it is. Alice Randall's lawsuit in 2001 tested those protections. The 11th Circuit Court ruled for Randall on First Amendment grounds. Parody and commentary are protected forms. The counter-narrative survived. The ongoing scholarly debate, is it literature, is it history, is it myth, has produced decades of academic argument. The novel doesn't resolve the question, it embodies it. Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, and other Southern writers have written about Mitchell's shadow over American literature. The tradition she started and the tradition she obscured at the same time. 30 million copies and still selling. That number has been cited for decades and keeps growing. Whatever its complications, Something in this novel keeps finding readers who need it. What keeps it selling? The story, probably first, then Scarlett, then Rhett, then the war, then the land, in that order, roughly, depending on who you ask. The Georgia Historical Society's relationship to the novel is complicated. Pride in its origin, ongoing negotiation with its politics. Georgia keeps the conversation alive because it has to. Atlanta today, the city Mitchell wrote about, is unrecognizable to her characters. The skyline alone would stun Scarlett, but Peachtree Street still runs through it. The name, at least, survives. What survives beneath all of it? The red Georgia earth, the same latitude, the same summer heat, the same enormous sky. The land Mitchell loved is still there. The rest is palimpsest. We understand now where this story came from. A woman, a city, a war her grandparents survived, a decade of secret work, and the red earth she never left in her imagination. Some books leave phrases behind that outlive everything else. Gone with the Wind left more than most. The language entered the culture before the culture noticed. Tomorrow is another day. Say it and people know it. It travels without context now. It works in any language for any loss. Mitchell put it last and made it permanent. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. The most quoted film line in history. 6 words that carry exhaustion, finality, the weight of a love that ran out, they still land. The archetype of Scarlett in popular culture. Every ambitious woman who refuses to stay down carries some of her. She is a template, flawed, vivid, impossible to ignore. Scarlett O'Hara in feminist criticism. The arguments have lasted 90 years. Hero or villain or something the categories can't quite hold. Probably the third one. That's why she lasts. Rhett Butler in romantic fiction. He is the template for the dangerous man with a heart. Every brooding hero in popular romance owes something to him. He is the original. Gone with the Wind and the romance novel genre. Mitchell didn't invent it, but she shaped it decisively. The structure of desire, obstacle, and loss became the genre's grammar. The Southern Gothic as a literary tradition. What Mitchell touched that others took further. The ruined mansion, the haunted past, the woman managing catastrophe. She laid the foundation. Flannery O'Connor, Carson McCullers. The Southern writers who came after Mitchell. They took the Gothic darker, stranger, more honest. But they walked a path she had cleared. The question of authenticity. Can one writer's view contain a whole world? Mitchell's answer is no, but she tried anyway. The attempt produced something remarkable and something incomplete. What the novel does brilliantly. The sheer narrative momentum. Once it starts moving, you can't stop it. Mitchell keeps something happening in every scene, every chapter, every page. What it fails. Who is absent, whose suffering is background. The people whose labor built Tara and 12 Oaks are not the story. That absence is not accidental, it is a choice. Holding both truths. The novel is great. The novel is wrong. Both are real, both matter. A reader can carry both without having to choose. That's what a complicated masterpiece asks of us. The survival theme across literature. Scarlett alongside other survivors. She stands with every character who was stripped of everything and chose to continue. The company is distinguished. Survival versus living. Scarlett's tragedy is that she confuses the two for most of the novel. By the time she understands the difference, she has survived herself into aloneness. The land as anchor across cultures. Tara and its equivalents in world literature. Every culture has a version of the place worth fighting to return to. Mitchell's is Georgia red clay. Mitchell's one novel versus authors with long careers, which leaves the deeper mark. The question has no clean answer. One enormous thing can outweigh many good things, sometimes. Harper Lee also wrote one novel, Salinger nearly. Some writers say everything in one sustained effort and have nothing left to add. Maybe that's not failure, maybe it's completion. What makes a book last? Mitchell's formula, however accidental. A story large enough to carry real history. Characters vivid enough to feel like people you've met. And something true at the center. The reader who falls asleep to this story tonight What do they take with them? Probably not the plot, not exactly. Something more like a feeling. Something like the red earth. Scarlett's message to the exhausted tonight: rest now. Tomorrow you will find a way. You always have. You will again. That's what she knows, and she knows it in her bones. Rhett's message to the guarded tonight: love is not infinite. Let people in before it runs out. He learned this too late, but he learned it. Consider learning it earlier than he did. Melanie's message to anyone who is struggling tonight: goodness is not weakness. It is the most durable form of strength. She proved this every day of her brief life. Ashley's message to the nostalgic: you cannot live in the past. It will hollow you out from the inside. The world changes. You must change with it or become a ghost in your own life. Gerald O'Hara's message to those who love their home: some things matter more than survival. Gerald loved Tara with his whole self. When it broke, he broke, but he was right to love it that fully. Ellen O'Hara's message in her brief pages: grace under endless labor is its own kind of life. She never complained. She managed everything. She was not diminished by her service. She was enlarged by it. The novel's enduring question: is survival enough? Or do we need to grow? Scarlett survives magnificently and grows slowly and painfully. Mitchell suggests both are required, in that order. Scarlett's answer: tomorrow. Always tomorrow. The question deferred to the next day, the growth scheduled for after the next crisis. And yet, she does get there eventually, barely. Just in time. Our answer tonight: rest first. Everything else can wait until morning. You've carried enough for today. The story will be here. Tara will be here. Tomorrow is, after all, another day. The American dream, as Gone with the Wind tells it: built on what was burned, rebuilt from what remained. Immigrant hunger, survivor will, and the stubborn love of a specific piece of earth. The immigrant O'Hara thread: Gerald came from Ireland with nothing. He built a plantation from will and work. Scarlett inherits that hunger without inheriting the memory of having nothing. The novel as immigrant story in disguise: build it, lose it, build it again. The O'Hara arc is the arc of anyone who came from somewhere with nothing and made something, then had to make it again. The optimism that refuses to be extinguished. America's mythology, for better and worse. Scarlett is not the best of America. She is the most American part of America. That's different. What the novel gives us permission to feel: the full range. Want, loss, rage, love, grief, determination. It doesn't ask you to be moderate. It gives you the whole of it. Why we return to big stories when life is hard. They hold what we can't. They carry the weight, so we don't have to carry it alone. That's what literature is for, at its most essential. The bedtime reader's relationship to Scarlett. You don't have to admire her to need her. You don't have to agree with her to take something from her. Stories don't ask for approval. The sound of the wind in the Georgia pines. That's the title's true referent. Not just the old world, but the specific sound. The way the South sounds when everything is quiet. The red earth at Tara. Warm and solid, something to stand on. Carry that image with you tonight. A piece of ground that holds. Something that doesn't shift when you put your weight on it. Rhett's silhouette in the fog. Still moving, still somewhere out there. Maybe he finds his way back. Mitchell didn't say. The fog holds the possibility without confirming it. The legacy is complete. The novel stands enormous, complicated, alive after 90 years. The conversation continues. The story keeps finding people who need it. Including tonight, including you. The night deepens now. The story has been told. What remains is just the settling. The way a fire goes quiet after the long burning. What we've carried through this story tonight. Survival, love, the question of enough. Let those things rest now. You don't need to hold them tightly in sleep. Returning to Tara one last time tonight. The house in the mind's eye. The columns, the red drive, the cotton fields. A place that holds without asking anything back. The columns catching morning light. Pink and gold on white plaster. The way the south looks in the hour before the heat arrives. Still and quietly beautiful. Scarlett standing at the gate. Not defeated. Just beginning again. That's the image to carry with you. Not the breaking, but what comes after it. Her green eyes fixed on what comes next. Always forward, this woman. It isn't always admirable. But tonight, tired as you are, it might be what you need to borrow from her. The cotton rows stretching out, empty now but hers. She will plant again. She has done it before. The red earth remembers her and she remembers it. What Tara feels like, solid beneath the feet, older than any single person's trouble. The house has seen so much and is still standing. There's comfort in that kind of witness. The wind through the Georgia pines. That's the sound the title is made of. Listen for it now if you can. Something moving through something tall and patient and very old. Gone with the wind, the old world, yes. But Scarlett herself, never. She is still at the gate, still planning. The wind takes what it takes and leaves what it leaves. The warmth that comes from a story well told. You can feel it settling into you now. The way a long meal leaves you comfortable and still, that's the story's last gift. For those still awake, this last stretch is for you too. You don't have to be almost asleep to deserve the quiet. Stay as long as you need. The night is patient. And for those already drifting, the story will be here when you return. It has been here for 90 years. It will keep. Sleep is the right thing now. Rhett, somewhere out in the world tonight. Maybe changed, maybe not. Maybe he found what he was looking for. The fog doesn't tell us. That's all right. Melanie, in our memory now. The good that stays after the good are gone. She is still in the room somehow. Goodness leaves a residue, you know the feeling. Ashley, finally free. Free from Scarlett's projection, from the weight of being someone's dream. He can be only himself now. Smaller than the dream, but real, that's enough. Bonnie's blue ribbons. A small grief that stays. Some losses are like that. Small and particular and permanent. You carry them lightly, but you always carry them. Gerald's love for the red earth. Passed to Scarlett like a gift she didn't choose and couldn't refuse. The things we inherit from our parents without knowing. They run deep. Mammy's kerchief. The wide veranda. The house made of small things. Every home is. The objects that mean everything to the people who hold them. The Georgia sky at night. Enormous. Stars thick as spilled salt. It was always this big. The characters lived under it without looking up enough. The smell of red clay after rain. That specific southern earth smell. If you've ever been to Georgia in the summer, you know it. If not, imagine it. Warm and mineral and old. The warmth of knowing this story now. It sits inside you. You have been somewhere tonight. Georgia in 1861. Atlanta burning. Terror in winter. The red earth in your hands. Margaret Mitchell, Atlanta 1936. At her desk in the apartment on Crescent Avenue. She had no idea what she had made. The book sat finished, and she sat beside it uncertain. The first reader who turned the last page. Whoever they were, in whatever city, in whatever chair. The feeling they had in that moment. Something that a story gives you that nothing else quite does. All the readers since. In 40 languages. In 100 countries. In 100 different kinds of trouble and comfort. The same pages finding the same need in all of them. You tonight. Wherever you are. This story has found you. That's not nothing. A 90-year-old story from a Georgia apartment finding you here. There's something right about that. The voice is going quieter now. The way a fire settles when the logs are mostly ash. Still warm, still there. Just smaller and slower and ready for the night. Your breath is slower now. The day is very far away. The things you were carrying when you started this. They've set themselves down somewhere behind you. The story releases you gently. You don't need to hold on to it, it will keep. Stories always keep. They wait in the dark, and they are there when you come back. Tomorrow the questions can wait. Scarlett was right about that much at least. Whatever needs deciding will still need deciding in the morning. Nothing is lost by sleeping first. For now, The Georgia pines, the night breeze, the distant sound of the land settling. Let that be enough. It's enough for Tara. It can be enough for tonight. Everything is quiet at Tara. The house resting in its red earth. The columns in the dark. The fields breathing in the night air. No demands for this hour. The stars are out over Georgia, cold and clear and very old. They were there before Tara, and they will be there long after. Some things make the troubles small. Sleep comes like the Georgia dusk, slowly, warmly, without asking. You don't have to reach for it. Just stop reaching for everything else. It finds you. Good night. The red earth is still there. Tara is still standing. And after all, tomorrow is another day.